So this is the Sony XV800. Now personally, I like its new mellow sound signature. It also has an optical port, so you can use it with your TV, which I feel helps makes this speaker a little bit more versatile, and it also has a decent real-world battery life. However, the speaker is a little big and it is a little pricey, but today we're going to compare the Sony XV800 to some smaller and more popular box speakers like the JBL Partybox 110 and the Sony XP500.
Regarding pricing, the XV800 has a retail price of $650. A little pricey, but I do expect this speaker to go on sale on a regular basis. But then there's the Partybox 110 and Sony XP500, which both have a retail price of $400, but they like to go on sale for $300 on a regular basis. Nonetheless, if you want to pick any of these speakers up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, pick up a Big Head approved hat, linked down below. We've got trucker hats and snapbacks. By buying a hat, you help the unbiased and unsponsored videos coming, and it also helps us cover more products and produce more versus videos. Thank you to everyone who's already bought a hat, and look out for more designs coming soon. And also, please remember to hit that like button and let's get subscribed. Now first, we need to talk about the design of these speakers. As you can clearly see, the XV800 is the largest speaker here. Now this speaker weighs in at 40 pounds, but for the most part, a single person can easily transport this speaker. And to make life a little easier, Sony went ahead and added some wheels. The only problem is these wheels aren't the largest, so they're not going to be the best one on a rough surface like, let's say, asphalt. You're still going to be better off just carrying this speaker. Whereas with these other two speakers, they don't have wheels, but they're smaller and they both weigh in less than 25 pounds. So these are your more portable options. Now durability wise, all of these speakers have a mostly plastic body which can get scratched very easily, but they're all water resistant. So a little rain or if they get splashed on, they're going to be perfectly fine. But then there's the light feature on these speakers. Both of Sony's speakers have their typical light bars up top and on the bottom. Overall, these light features look decent and they look good at night or indoors, but plainly said, the 110's light feature is much more impressive. It's larger and it's much more dynamic. But one thing that the XV800 does have going for it here is that its capacitive buttons up top light up, and this is very useful either at night or in a dark room. But regardless, if you decide to use the light feature on any of these speakers, that is going to take its toll on the battery life.
Now when it comes to battery life, the XV800 has an advertised battery life of 25 hours. However, this advertised battery life of 25 hours is with this speaker playing at 30% volume, which is a decent listening volume for at-home use. And that's with the mega bass feature turned on, which is good, but that's with the light feature turned off. But real-world use with this speaker playing at 65% volume, which I feel is a decent listening volume to use while with friends, and with the mega bass feature turned on and with the light feature turned on, the XV800 is good for about 10 hours of playback time, which is rather impressive. But then there's the XP500, which has an advertised battery life of 20 hours, but that's with this speaker playing at 30% volume, which is actually very low. It's good for like ambiance, but it's not good for like actually listening to music. And in general, the XP500 is very quiet for its size when it's running off of its internal battery. And also that's with the mega bass feature turned on, and that's with the light feature turned off. But real-world use with the speaker playing at 80% volume, which is better, but at 80% volume, the XP500 is still going to leave you wanting more relative to its size. And with the mega bass feature turned on and with the light feature turned on, the XP500 is good for about 6 hours of playback time. And finally, there's the Partybox 110, which has an advertised battery life of 12 hours, but that's with this speaker playing at 25% volume, which is noticeably louder than 30% volume on the XP500. But that's with the light feature and the bass boost feature turned off. But real-world use with it playing at 65% volume, which I feel is a decent listening volume when you're with friends and with the light feature turned on and with the bass boost feature turned on as well. The 110 is going to be good for around 6 hours of playback time. But overall, battery life on these speakers really varies depending on how you use them, but in general, yes, the XV800 does have a longer lasting battery life than all of these other speakers, which can come in handy if you plan on taking this speaker on the go with you. Now regarding connectivity, all of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ, and none of these speakers have any latency issues, so you can use them to watch videos on your phone. Now when it comes to audio codecs, the 110 only has support for SBC, whereas Sony speakers have support for SBC, AAC, and LDAC, which is Sony's own in-house high-res audio codec. Just keep in mind that if you want to use LDAC, you do have to be an Android user because iPhones top out at AAC, and also if you do decide to use LDAC, that is going to take an additional toll on the battery life. But if you want to, you can always just use a wired connection with any of these speakers because they all still have an audio jack. But the 110 is the only speaker here that has an audio out jack. So if you have a spare audio cable lying around and you have a spare speaker lying around, regardless of size or brand, you can always just daisy chain it to the 110 and they're going to play in sync. But something that the XV800 does have that these other two speakers don't is an optical port, and it also comes included with its own optical cable. So if you want, you can always use this speaker with your TV as a soundbar. And personally, I do like having this feature because if you need a little extra something when you're going to watch the game, the XV800 can come in clutch. And finally, all three of these speakers can be used for karaoke. However, with both of Sony speakers, they can properly drive two microphones, whereas the 110 can only properly drive one microphone because the second quarter-inch input is meant for a guitar. So this input has a lot more resistance to it, so your microphone isn't going to sound as good. However, with the 110, you can go into the app and you can adjust the sound of your microphone. Whereas with Sony speakers, the only thing that you can really do is add an echo. And personally, I don't think an echo is the best thing for karaoke. But overall, I do feel that if karaoke is very important to you, then you might want to go with the Sonys here because you might want to be able to do karaoke with a friend, not just you. But in general, I do wish that Sony speakers would allow you to adjust the sound of your microphone because all of these silly sound effects that you find in the Fiesta Bowl app just isn't cutting it. But now let's talk about sound. Regarding speaker setups, both the 110 and XP500 have dual front mid-firing woofers with an exhaust port that shoots out the back, and they both have dual front mid-firing tweeters. But then there's the XV800, which also has dual front mid-firing woofers, but its exhaust port shoots out the front, and this thing has a total of 5 tweeters on it, 3 on the front and 2 on the back that shoot upwards. Now when the speaker is standing upright, it'll use these 2 tweeters and the 2 on the back, and when it's on its side, it'll use these 2 tweeters and it will continue to use the 2 on the back as well. But now we're going to jump into the sound test. The XP500 is playing at max volume just so that it can keep up. The 110 is playing at 88% volume with the bass set to deep, and the XV800 is playing at 75% volume with the mega bass feature turned on, and all of these speakers are running off of their internal battery.
Mama said you're meant to burn as bright as a star among the midnight sky. All the pressure blinded me, but now I see I'm not different from the rest. You said I'll fly away, but my walls have kept me down. Now I'm lost and I'm afraid, and I'm close to hit the ground. You said I'll fly away. Open door, show me proof that there is something more. I just hope I am okay with the choices I make. Maybe then I'll understand. You said I'd fly away, but my walls have kept me down. Now I'm lost and I'm afraid, and I'm close to hit the ground. keep on falling. I keep on falling.
Now first, I think we need to address max volume performance on these speakers. Obviously, since the XV800 is larger than both the Partybox 110 and XP500, the XV800 is going to get noticeably louder than these other two speakers, and it should be good enough for a 20-person party. Now, the Partybox 110 gets decently loud for its size when it's running off of its internal battery, and I'm willing to say that it's decent enough for up to a 12-person party. Whereas with the XP500, this is a speaker that's going to leave you wanting more when it's running off of its internal battery. However, with all of these speakers, if you use them while they're plugged in, you're going to get a noticeable performance bump out of them. They're all going to get louder and they're all going to have more bass. And when you use the XP500 while it's plugged in, that's when the speaker starts to perform as you'd expect. Now, when the Partybox 110 is plugged in, it performs very similar to the XV800 when it's running off of its internal battery. Overall, just as you'd expect, the XV800 is going to get louder than these other two speakers, but the Partybox 110 does a good job of keeping up relative to its size. But then there's the XP500, where if you use it while it's running off of its battery, it's going to leave you wanting more. But when it comes to overall sound quality of these speakers, the XP500 has a warmer sound signature to it, so it's going to sound a little shallow and the vocals aren't going to be as emphasized. Whereas the 110 has a brighter sound signature to it, so vocals are going to be even more emphasized. But then there's the XV800, which has Sony's newer, more balanced sound signature to it. The vocals are a lot more emphasized than on the XP500, but they aren't overemphasized as with the 110. Overall, I like how the XV800 sounds, but the key thing to keep in mind here about this speaker is its bass. The bass on the XV800 is more on the audible side and it's smoother, and surprisingly enough, the bass on the 110 has the same amount of physicality to it when the bass boost is set to deep. But if you were to set the bass on this speaker to punchy, and if you were to raise the bass on the speaker as well, the 110 is going to be able to rattle your walls more than the XV800. Overall, the XV800 gives you a more balanced listening experience and is going to get louder, but if you want as much bass as possible here, then you might want to go with the 110.
But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, with the 110, you can wirelessly pair it up to one other party box, like let's say an Encore, a 110, a 310, or a 710, and you can get them to play in sync, or if you have two of the same speakers, you can get them to play in stereo mode. But the most important thing to remember here is that you cannot wirelessly pair any of JBL's larger party box speakers to any of JBL's smaller party boost speakers. Now, personally, I do think that it is very limiting that you can only wirelessly pair two party boxes together, and I also think that it's very limiting that you cannot pair your box speakers to your smaller, more portable JBL party boost speakers. However, the 110 does have that audio out jack. So, like I mentioned earlier, if you have a spare audio cable lying around, you can always daisy chain it to one other speaker and get them to play in sync. But then there's the XV800 and the XP500, which are both using Sony's Party Connect. So you can wirelessly pair them up to any of Sony's other speakers that are also using Party Connect, like an XV900, an XV800, XP700, or an XP500, and you can pair up to 100 speakers together and get them to play in sync. Or if you have two of the same speakers, you can get them to play in stereo mode. But the really cool thing about Sony's Party Connect is that you can pair your larger box speakers to any of Sony's smaller speakers that are also using Party Connect, like let's say an XG500, XG300, XE300, XE200, XP43, XP33, or XP23, and again, you can pair up to 100 speakers together and you can get them to play in sync. Now, even though Sony's Party Connect is very accommodating and it gets the job done, sometimes it can be a bit of a hassle to use. Sometimes it can take a while for all of your speakers to get paired up. Sometimes all of your speakers don't don't get paired up on the first try, so you're going to have to go through the pairing process multiple times, and sometimes skipping does happen. Now, this doesn't happen all of the time, but this is just a heads up as to what to expect with Sony's Party Connect. Whereas with JBL's TWS, even though it is a lot more limiting because you can only pair two party boxes together and you can't pair them to any of JBL's Party Boost speakers, personally I have found it to be a lot simpler to use than Party Connect. Pairing your two speakers together is easier, it's faster, and skipping isn't as big of an issue.
But with all of that being said, yes, if you were to spring for the XV800, it's going to be noticeably louder, it's going to have a longer lasting battery life, you can connect it to your TV, and you can use two microphones with it for karaoke. Honestly, the XP500 has a very hard time even keeping up with the XV800. But then there's the Partybox 110. Now, this has been one of my favorite box speakers to recommend because it sounds good, it has as much bass as the XV800, and it has a very impressive light feature. But this speaker doesn't have as good of a battery life, it's not going to get as loud, and it can only properly drive one microphone. But still, the 110 is still great, but it is worth springing for the XV800. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.